Ren from Hallowed Be Thy Game, and today we continue my countdown of my top 50 games of all time, numbers 40 through 31. Let's check it out. I am so excited to be continuing this list, and again, I just want to thank everyone who just positively received the first entry in this. I was kind of interested to see if anybody cared, but anyways, it's just really fun to talk about this. But again, continue your countdowns down in the comments. I love reading about them. It's just really cool, just the vast differences between gamers who are even interested in the same genre. But with that, number 40, Resident Evil 4. What can I say about this titan of the industry that hasn't already been said? Resident Evil 4 is one of those rare games that shapes and defines an entire genre. For better or worse, this really changed the Resident Evil games for quite some time, and even though it was a spooky game, I felt it wasn't as terrifying as the previous entries in the list. And let me tell you, Resident Evil 4 is fun as all get out. When I first played this, it blew my mind. It was terrifying. It starts off strong and it goes start to finish, and it's just really fun but scary. And for me, like, the first couple Resident Evils were so scary, like almost at times the anxiety was a little too much, but that's why I love them anyways. I'm really excited this series has kind of come back around full circle. However, the over-the-shoulder camera view in this game just really defined an entire genre. You know, you get games like Gears of War, just an absolute joy of a game. I was so excited when my friend Danik picked up an Oculus and he got Resident Evil 4 VR. Truly another level of intensity, but it was an absolute blast. Incredible game. If you haven't checked it out, definitely play Part of History because it still holds up to this day. Number 39. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. Now, for you hardcore SMT fans out there, I'm sure I just lost a couple of you. However, this was one of the first SMT games I played. It kind of introduced me difficulty-wise to just the shift between Persona. I'm not gonna lie, I still love this game. I think it is obviously not as good as 4, however, the combat system in this is one of my favorites in all the SMT games. It introduced design elements that I feel like just helped contribute to the greatness of SMT5's combat system. Before in the series, something's ability to be able to have a higher magic stat usually just dictated that it was better at all magic types, which, to give you an example, Jack Frost is a cute little snowman. Now, this cute little snowman has a higher magic stat than, let's say, a fire serpent or something like that. Well, that means Jack Frost could use fire magic and hit harder than that. SMT4 Apocalypse just kind of helped shift the design focus to where you could kind of diversify your enemies a little bit. Not as much as I think 5 really helped shine that system with the affinities. However, SMT4 Apocalypse, again, it does reuse a lot of content from 4, which is a titan of the genre for me. I love 4. I always say that SMT4 Apocalypse is a great game. It's just a bad sequel to 4 because it does kind of retcon a few things. It feels ham-fisted for sure. However, it didn't stop the fun I had with it. If you're open to kind of eerie turn-based games, SMT4 Apocalypse is one of my favorites. Number 38, Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. One of the more recent additions to my top 50 list, Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age is a game I played for a little bit, didn't want anything to do with it, wasn't having fun, I just kind of dropped it immediately. Almost a year later, on a whim, I tried it again, got past the little drought of abilities I was in. The game's combat system and that glorious gambit system opened up, and I just didn't look back. I had the time of my life with it. I would love to see the gambit system be implemented with a Final Fantasy XIV solo experience. I know that's weird, but the gambit system essentially means you can control your character, essentially set parameters for your AI teammates to follow. It's extremely intuitive, very, very effective. It works shockingly well, and I'm shocked we don't see it a lot more in these kind of games. For someone like me who really loved MMOs and played them almost exclusively for 15 years, Final Fantasy XII the Zodiac Age. It hits that itch, but it allows me to be able to hit pause and walk away when I can. And as a father and a husband, my family very much appreciates that. But yes, Final Fantasy XII, there's a lot of hate bait around this. I'm going to tell you, Van is not as bad as everybody makes him out to be. Fran and Bosch and the glorious Balthier are some of the best characters in all of Final Fantasy. Give this one a shot. I loved it. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Number 37, Dead Space. As a massive fan of all things H.P. Lovecraft, and the movie The Thing is one of my favorite movies of all time, Dead Space hits the correct synapses in my brain to both terrify me with extremely fun gameplay systems to keep me fighting to the very end. Dead Space 1, I think, is a foundational game for just everything I love about horror games. Resident Evil 4 was heavily influential in Dead Space's development. I think they were making like System Shock or something, a sequel to System Shock, and then they essentially played Resident Evil 4, uprooted everything, and just kind of took the template of Resident Evil 4 and made Dead Space. And let me tell you, the highest form of flattery is imitation, and Dead Space is just a pristine horror video game. It's terrifying, it's isolating, it's fun to play. The added strategy of how to deal with the necromorphs, you can't necessarily just shoot them to death, you have to essentially dismember them. It's terrifying. A lot of fun weapons in this, a lot of different things. You know, you play as an engineer, so you're fighting with plasma cutters or gravity-based bandsaws, or you're using your stasis fields and stuff like that to just pick up objects and throw them. Dead Space, to me, if you have nerves of steel or you just love being scared, Dead Space is a must-play. I think it is literally one of the best horror games ever made, and I'm not overhyping it. I love this game. Number 36, Persona 3. Oh, you knew it wouldn't be too long before we got more of the SMT and Persona games on my list. Persona 3's mood and setting is just one of my favorites in all of the turn-based genre. It really is kind of introducing the social aspects that you get with the classic Persona 3 formula. Obviously, Nocturne introduced and created the god-tier press-turn battle system, which Persona 3 was the first of the Persona games to implement. To me, there is no better turn-based battle system in gaming. Any variation of it is my favorite. It works my brain, it gets my strategy side of my mind going. I love it. It's just my favorite. However, Persona 3 really started to heavily introduce the calendar system, and you get this fun aspect of Persona, which may not be for everybody. However, just being able to form those relationships and friendships, and then they have in-game battle benefits, mwah, chef's kiss. I can't get enough of it. However, one of the best and most fascinating things about Persona 3 is the Dark Hour. It's this really eerie concept about an extra hidden hour throughout the day where essentially a lot of spooky things happen. Persona 3 is one of my favorite settings in stories for any Persona game. It is dark, it is gloomy, it's a lot drearier than you're going to get in Persona 4 or 5. However, it's just excellent. I love the cast of characters. There's some people you can genuinely hate, but then you kind of grow to love and respect. There's a lot of character development here. Really, I think Persona 3 is a great entry point into the series if maybe you're not drawn to the more anime aspects of the later entries. But Persona 3, it's an all-time classic, and that ending still has me reeling to this day. Check it out. Number 35, Mass Effect 2. For a time during the drought of Star Wars films and movies, and I just grew to a point where I was kind of done with the sci-fi genre. However, Mass Effect was just this unimaginably deep world. I really fell in love with the series with Mass Effect 1. Without a doubt, my favorite Mass Effect game is 2. That mission at the end just had me literally on the edge of my seat. I was just in the moment, almost sweating. I was just like all in. And it was excellently done. The story setting where you're kind of putting together this elite task force, I'm always a sucker for that in movies. The dialogue and character development is some of my favorite in all of gaming. I definitely love the Paragon and Renegade system that was introduced in the Mass Effect series, even though it ended on a fizzling out note with 3. However, I loved it in 2. And the combat in 2 just really brought the series forward into a modern day combat system, which I loved. It was really cool with the cover system. Again, I'm a sucker for that kind of Gears of War prototype that you can get and see with, like, even from Resident Evil 4 and Dead Space. I just love that over-the-shoulder look. The story just absolutely tugs on the heartstrings. An excellent game and one of the greatest sci-fi video games ever made. Number 34. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Back in the day when I originally played Wind Waker, I wasn't really open to it. I was not immediately sold cel-shaded style that they introduced. I was definitely much more a fan of the look of Twilight Princess. You know, a lot of people these days say, oh, well, I always loved Wind Waker, this or that. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't immediately sold on it aesthetically. However, playing the game, that quickly changed. After all these years, I think Wind Waker holds up as one of the best Zelda games that was ever made. Wind Waker's story was really cute. It was just endearing. There's a lot of mystery and wonder to the game. I will admit, one of my lesser favorite aspects of it was just, you know, having to sail around everywhere. I kind of missed some of the iconic locations. This game went in a bold new direction, and it landed. I mean, it's honestly one of my favorite Zelda games. Some of the facial animations from this game just still have me and my friends cracking up. We'll send GIFs of this game to each other. Just some of the Link's facial animations are just hilarious, and I love it. The combat's really good, and that final fight with the final boss, I won't spoil anything if you haven't played it, it's just jaw-droppingly good, and I loved it. I wasn't a big fan of the DS games that would come after, but maybe I need to give them another shot to see what I think, but I love this iteration of Link, and Wind Waker is an all-time classic. Number 33, Shin Megami Tensei 3, Nocturne. Honestly, there's just no denying that, to me, Nocturne is one of the greatest turn-based video games ever made. For me, it is one of the most influential and important because it was the genesis of the press turn battle system. Is this game brutally hard at times? Yes, absolutely. But I encourage everyone to give it a go, especially with the remaster and port to the Switch and I believe PS4. I think it just brought a lot to the table in terms of accessibility. There are difficulty sliders for this, but honestly, even playing it on normal, you're able to choose your spells you want to pass on through fusion. There's a wealth of knowledge online. Heck, if if you're playing it and you have any questions, ask me. I love chatting about Nocturne. There is just a look and a feel to this game that is so rarely replicated throughout all of gaming for me. It's haunting, it's desolate. I don't know why I'm drawn to games to where you have this isolated, eerie feeling, but Nocturne just has this kind of creation myth mysticism about it. I know that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but the game's just eerie and it's excellent. The combat system feels very weighty. You know, when you do a charged attack or something like that, or you kind of set up this big combo and just unleash it, it feels epic. And, you know, when you can just kind of one-shot an enemy that had been giving you a lot of trouble when you first met it, it feels amazing. The endings to this are just alluring, it's eerie, and I absolutely cannot recommend Nocturne enough to fans of the genre. If you are a Persona fan or if you're an SMT5 fan, I think you owe it to yourself to give Nocturne a shot. It is a part of gaming history, but it holds up really well to this day. Check it out. Number 32. Resident Evil Remake for the GameCube. Oh man, the first time I played Resident Evil on the PlayStation, I'm gonna be honest, I kind of had to tap out. It was too scary for me. It got under my skin. I had a hard time sleeping. That's a long story. Anyways, after years would go by and I picked up a GameCube, I saw that there was a very good looking remake of the first Resident Evil. I kind of felt like I had to prove it to my younger self that I could overcome my fear and brave the horrors of the first Resident Evil. And let me tell you, this sucker was terrifying. The pre-rendered backgrounds and the graphics of this hold up shockingly well to this day. I think it's one of the best looking GameCube games, period. Even the tank controls, it's a part of gaming history for me, not to just kind of excuse some of the rougher controls of tank controls and stuff like that, but I thought it played great. It feels good, and it's a horrifying game. It's very spooky, and even though the controls can be kind of hard to get used to if you've never played a game like that before, once it clicks for you, you're you're worried about other things. I'll leave it like that. And this game made me terrified of gardens at night, and that's all I'll say. Resident Evil Remake is one of the best remakes ever made, period. And with modern ports of this to the Switch, and I believe other consoles, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot. I believe it's a part of a Resident Evil collection on the Switch, and I can't recommend it enough. It is super spooky. Number 31, Dark Souls 3. To me, one of the best action RPG series ever made is obviously the Souls series. I think that Dark Souls 3 kind of came into its own with build diversity. The lore and the world of 3 is just culminated in this excellent experience to where you kind of feel like you're coming full circle. To me, personally, I think the Ringed City DLC is the best DLC ever made for a video game. And it's not even close for me. I loved the Ringed City. It was the perfect bow to put on one of the best trilogy of video games ever made. But Dark Souls 3 is just fantastic. First time I played it, I always kind of went for a quality build, but playing a Pyromancer in Dark Souls 3 is some of the most fun I've ever had in an action RPG. The world is obviously haunting. It has a lot of rich lore to it, but exploring in these games is just something akin to all its own. If you're playing Elden Ring right now and you're like, wow, this is excellent and incredible, I would highly suggest checking out Dark Souls 3. You're not going to have horse combat or an open world setting. However, the level design to Dark Souls 3, the ability to get lost in that game is just not to be downplayed. Is it harder than Elden Ring? Each Souls game brings its own unique challenge. And I always think the hardest Souls game you ever play will be the first one because they all have a lot in common. But they don't feel like you're playing the same game over and over again. But kind of the rule sets to where you'll progress through the game have a lot of similarities to where, once you found your way through one game, you're kind of have the tool set you would need to tackle any of them. But to me, Dark Souls 3 is an excellent game. The dodging and parrying and blocking in this game, it's much more fast-paced than you would see in Bloodborne, or especially the original Dark Souls, or even the Demon Souls remake especially. It is a good bridge after you've played Elden Ring. Dark Souls 3, it's one of the GOATs. Definitely check it out. And with that, we wrap up numbers 40 through 31. Thank you so much for checking out this video. And if you are sharing along with me, I cannot wait to read your numbers 40 through 31. If this is the first video you watch, make sure to go back and check out my first video where I cover numbers 50 through 41 and let me know what they are down in the comments. I'm having an absolute blast sharing this list with you, and I can't wait to read yours down in the comments. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time.